I think the most scary thing for me was releasing my first book and really thinking, who the hell do you think you are to tell people how to emotionally heal based on your own experience? So I had secretly been doing my work for about 6 months, and the results from my clients got me so curious that I thought, if I don't share this with other people, I'm going to die with this song in my heart and it's just going to kill me. So it was kind of like do or die was how I felt.
You are listening to The Creative Imposter, episode number 28. Welcome to The Creative Imposter. I'm Andrea Klunder, and I am coming to you right now from my brand new homemade audio booth. I basically took a horrible wood-paneled, over-cluttered, junky pantry in my apartment, painted it, took everything out, and I'm in the process of transforming it into an audio booth. And so far, I think it sounds really good. There's still a little bit of work to be done. Like the foam paneling that I have up is this ugly pink color that isn't quite right. And I'm borrowing the rug from the bathroom to make cushioning on the tile floor for the time being. But I think that we're making progress, and this is going to be a really cool little space for recording podcasts and also possibly for doing some audiobook narration. So I'm very excited to be in my own little professional audio booth that is not a closet exactly. It's bigger than a closet. It actually has a window, and that also is not a large room where I'm trying to figure out how to minimize echo and not hear every single sound outside. It seems like this winter in Chicago, there's not hardly a moment of the day where someone isn't shoveling or snow blowing or plowing or salting. Today, I wanted to tell you that usually podcasting is easy. I mean, sure, there's the learning curve with the technology, and there's definitely an art to interviewing and editing, at least in order to produce the quality of show that I value and desire. And then, of course, there are the challenges of finding a quiet place in your home and dealing with street noise and possibly neighbors, things like that. But I've been doing this for over a year, and I've got all that stuff down, especially with my new audio booth. Getting today's episode out to you, however, has been nothing short of a Herculean effort. Just getting any episode out has been a challenge for a number of factors, including but not limited to the past couple of months. I have been busily helping my high school students finish their video and audio edits for their final journalism projects. The change in seasons to winter, finally, with snow and cold, has been sapping my energy. Winter is my least favorite season of the year. Thanksgiving holiday, which is coupled with my birthday and my mom's birthday. And then this heaviness over the U.S. election. Okay. Here is my non-political political statement and observation about this scenario. I am usually not that into politics. I find myself torn between wanting to participate in the democratic process and exercising my right to vote, which I realize was hard-won, and feeling completely apathetic, ineffective, like it doesn't really make a difference how I vote, and it doesn't so much make a difference who gets elected. Things always just kind of stay status quo, and they're never exactly how I'd like them to be. And so basically, I just shut down when it comes to this area. This election cycle was a little different. I actually got excited about Bernie Sanders as a candidate, especially after attending a rally with Bernie in Chicago the night before the primaries. When he didn't get the nomination, I wasn't surprised, but I was disheartened. I'm not a huge fan of Hillary Clinton. I, in theory, like the idea of having a female president, of course, and thought that that would be an amazing step forward. But she wasn't a candidate that I felt passionate about, and there were some issues with her politics that I had. But I did vote for her because at least I feel like she's a competent politician who would do her best and try to make decisions in the best interest of the most people possible. Trump, on the other hand, I just really can't understand or talk about without feeling a physical sensation in my gut, my chest, and my forehead of pain. I'm getting it right now. It's like a slightly nauseous, heavy feeling. And it's not Trump or even politics that I want to talk about here on my platform. This isn't a political show. It's a show about creativity and authenticity. But I do want to talk about this physical feeling I've been experiencing. On election night, I tried to stay home and not pay attention to the news and just relax by myself, do some meditation, take it easy, and try to assuage the building anxiety that I felt. That wasn't working. And so at a certain point, I decided to join a group of women and men who were gathered by Nikki Neagle, who you might remember from one of my very first episodes on The Creative Imposter. And when I arrived, the mood was tense, but still overwhelmingly hopeful and positive. And as the night progressed, it just got quieter and quieter. And we weren't really sure what was happening. And then I went home. Everything was still undecided, and I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning and immediately reached for my phone to find out what had happened while I was sleeping. And when I saw the result, I just started crying and crying and crying. And I'm not really even sure what I was crying about. It wasn't exactly that I was sad that Hillary didn't win. It wasn't exactly that I felt sad for myself in any way. It was scrolling through Facebook and looking at all of the reactions and all of the responses from people in my feed, which that's a whole other topic about bias and preferences and how probably no one showing up in my Facebook feed was happy with the result. But even news channels reporting so much fear from different individuals and groups of people, the tears just kept pouring out of me. And I had to really make an effort to pull myself out of bed and into a functional routine. And it took me about 5 to 7 days to feel right again after that. And to be honest, it's weeks later and I still feel residual stuff. So I've been moving a little more slowly and trying to process what this has triggered for me. And this internal process has taken me away temporarily from generating content of any kind, like podcasts or the Facebook Live videos that I have been posting in the Creative Imposter group, which you should probably join if you're on Facebook. And I think today's interview with heart healer Lysa Black holds some provocative and glimmering insights into this physical pain that I've been feeling around our politics and my habitual response to just shut down. In our conversation, we talk about what it means to be an empath or a highly sensitive person, how trauma from the past can manifest in our present problems and behaviors, and what we can do to flip that story around and turn our past experiences into an asset, and how Lysa learned to work with her own imposter feelings as a guide to help her write books about and step into the healing work that she currently does so beautifully and skillfully. I want to thank Lauren Ramsey of Betsy Bash Social Media for her continued support and sponsored partnership with The Creative Imposter. Right now, you can get a free 30-minute social media strategy call with Lauren at thecreativeimposter.com/Betsy Bash, and thanks to audible.com. Betsy Bash has an online book club, and every time Lauren announces the next book, I really want to join in the conversation and read, and I never find the time. Until now. It turns out, audiobooks from Audible are just like podcasts. I can listen to them on the bus or the train, while driving like I will be for Christmas, doing dishes, falling asleep at night. Side note, if you have insomnia, listen to Elizabeth Gilbert reading Big Magic. Her voice is so warm and soothing. It works every time. And as a bonus, I have the best, most creative dreams when I fall asleep to that book. Currently, I'm listening to My Life on the Road by Gloria Steinem, part of Betsy Bash's book club, and it's inspired me to really take a look at my political apathy versus distress coin and take some big action. In Gloria's book, she talks a lot about the roots of her political activism, and I'm going to reveal more about that big action at the end of this episode. But for now, just know that you can get a free trial of Audible for 30 days at audibletrial.com/The Creative Imposter. That's imposter with an O, not an E. And I'll, of course, link that up for you in the show notes at thecreativeimposter.com/028. In fact, why don't you get your trial and download your first 2 books for free and then share in the Creative Imposter Facebook group what you're listening to. Okay, are you ready for Lysa? Let's find out what heart healing is all about.
In a nutshell, I call myself a heart healer, and I serve those amongst us who are highly sensitive. So they're sometimes called HSP, highly sensitive people, empaths, people that are capable of feeling the emotions of others in their own body, or you just resonate with being highly sensitive and highly emotional. I am all of the above. And for me, really learning how to swim strong, safe, and smooth in my own internal world of emotion is what has brought me home to my own power and my own purpose. So I love working with these highly sensitive, deeply feeling people to be able to equip them with the skills to be able to be with their own nature in a way that's productive, but also to be able to heal the aspects from our past that holds us back from embodying all of the power and the purpose and the presence that is innately ours.
When you say empathic people or highly sensitive people, how would you know if you fall into that category?
I think there's lots of stuff coming out right now about highly sensitives and empaths, and I think they're quite broad, sweeping terms that a lot of us can relate to and identify with. So the way I like to define it is an empath is somebody that can feel the emotions of other people in their own body. And I like to remember that we're all actually gifted. We're all highly sensitive. So every human has this capacity, but some of us are actually more highly sensitive and more highly attuned to these aspects. So definitely myself and those that are really drawn to me just have an innate recognition that we have stronger emotional reactions to things. Often highly sensitive people and empaths have a low tolerance to media. I personally don't watch the TV because I just react so strongly to it. We don't like loud noises, big crowds. We kind of recognize that in a social situation, our personal response to different stimulus is very different to other people. And so, highly sensitives and empaths often go through a big process of really believing that there's something wrong with them, that they're fundamentally flawed. And it can really feel like these gifts are a curse. But I really love helping people to understand that I believe the role of an empath is a healer, a bringer of truth, someone that has reclaimed their own truth and can create space for other people to be able to more deeply connect with their own truth as well.
That's so beautiful because I have often heard our biggest weaknesses are often our biggest strengths and our biggest strengths are often our biggest weaknesses.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes we may have this characteristic or this personality trait, especially when we're younger, that we don't quite know how to utilize to our benefit. And it might seem like we feel like an outsider or something as a child, or it doesn't fit in with the norm, or adults are always trying to correct it for us. So when you work with someone who may be experiencing these things, what does that look like?
Yes, so I work with people privately. I offer what I call heart healing sessions. So often people will engage me just for a 1 hour once-off session. And then probably kind of 70 to 80% of people want to rebook and have a follow-up either a fortnight or a month after. Some people want to have me ongoing and some people just want me for one session. And for me, these people will be experiencing a high level of emotional volatility, and they'll also be experiencing repeating patterns. So my first book was all about helping people to be able to see the signs and signals to know when something actually needs healing. Talking like you were before about how as children, we often don't know that these special gifts are within us. And from a little girl, I could feel emotional pain within other people. I just thought everyone else could feel that as well. And so I actually was a chronic overeater, and there was so much pain manifesting in my solar plexus that I would just eat to numb that pain. And so seeking love in my early 20s prompted this dramatic change. And over 5 years, I dropped, 30 kilos. And once I was actually in that position of being thinner, I still was having trouble attracting a wonderful man. And so that was when I actually developed anxiety, and I actually became a binge eater. So often people that are highly, highly gifted will have kind of shadow patterns. And for me, these shadow patterns are a call to truth, but a lot of us don't actually know. So highly sensitives can actually feel within their own body what's true for them and what's not, but they often don't know how to discern that. So I almost act like a navigator, helping them to be able to discern their own internal system and really then give them the skills to be able to come home to their truth. Because I know that, you're so aware, Andrea, how much we do contain ourselves and adjust ourselves to be more socially appealing or more palatable to somebody else. And in that moment, we're desecrating and dishonoring ourselves.
You said that sometimes this can actually show up as a physical pain or a physical sensation in the body. Do people usually come to you with that complaint, like I'm having this pain in my body, or do people usually come with the situational complaint, like I just can't seem to have a decent relationship to save my life?
I would say that the situational is more common, that people will say, I can't attract love and I can't find my purpose. Although as soon as they start to sit with me and I'm guiding them in to connect with their body, they're always very quickly connected to especially heartache, pain in their heart and pain in their tummy. A lot of highly sensitives and empaths actually have digestive issues, actually have a lot of chronic problems in their tummy area, because this is the world of our emotion, and they don't have those skills to actually learn how to be aware and accept and acknowledge and release a lot of the feelings that are in this area. Yeah, it can be a bit of a nightmare, really. I guess just, reflecting back on it, the biggest complaint for an empath is we don't actually know what is ours. We don't know what feelings are ours and what feelings we've actually perceived in another. So without that clarity, you can't do anything about it. For me, I love helping people to understand that our emotions are actually communication from our own soul or our own spirit. I'm there to kind of really help them to be able to lean on their higher power and learn how to differentiate what's theirs and what's not, because an empath is always seeking to make other people happy. But until we learn how to bring happiness and love and peace to our own internal world, we're actually incapable of bringing that to anyone else.
How did you find that clarity when you were struggling with the relationship arena and you were feeling this as manifesting in physical pain and showing up in disordered ways of relating to food and eating? Mm-hmm. How did you get out of that cycle?
Oh, so this is a lot of the content of my first book, Heart Healing, the 13 Principles of Emotional Self-Healing, is where I relay an epic breakup, the breakup of breakups. It was kind of the fourth breakup in a series of 4 years. I'd moved out of home and I was really seeking that loving relationship, trying to be everything that would entitle me to be loved and be lovable. Every relationship would end with me being left alone and basically feeling like I wasn't good enough. So in comes along boyfriend number 4. And what was so interesting about this is that he looked really good on paper. So out of desperation, I was getting very creative in who I dated to try and figure out what the hell was going on. So I didn't actually have a great deal of personal attachment to this individual, even though he was a good friend. I admired him. I didn't have a lot of romantic attachment. So after a few weeks of being together and blah, 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 he broke up with me. The very moment that he told me, I remember exactly where I was. I was on the street. It was at nighttime out the front of my house. He lived a few blocks away, so I'd strolled over to break the news. As soon as he said the words, I just felt this enormous pain erupting. I couldn't tell you where I felt it come from in my body, but it's almost like this wave of ricocheting pain that would just surge up and down my body. He departed and I got really curious. This pain was so intense, and yet I knew that it wasn't justified because my affection towards this man wasn't even that strong. And so that pain actually helped me to recall a very old pain that I had forgotten from when my parents repeatedly separated when I was growing up. Dad would leave again, and I would feel like I wasn't lovable and I wasn't good enough. So it was so incredible to be able to realize in that moment that that depth of pain wasn't actually coming from this current experience. It was a reflection of a past experience with the same emotional parameters that my rational mind would have never have connected. That this pain was actually signaling for me that the beliefs that I secretly held about why my parents frequently separated were now activated in my own life and were unconsciously running my life and creating it for me now as an adult.
And that actually comes up in your second book. Is this your second book, or have you done more than that?
Yes, Divine Purpose is my second self-published book. I have another published book with another lady prior to this work in weight loss and eating disorder. So Divine Purpose, the 13 Principles of Ascension, 13 different stories from a variety of different clients and different experiences who read that first book, who learnt those principles of self-healing and stood by me as I guided them and helped them to be able to get the clarity and awareness to know how to use those principles. And then it shows the beautiful miracles that they brought forward in their own lives as they healed different aspects. Everyone healed something different, and the way I've organized it is into the 7 beautiful chakras, showing wounding from the crown chakra, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root chakra, because the more we can connect with an understanding of what wounding has actually occurred, how it manifests, and the practical steps we can actually take to heal these unconscious patterns from our past, the more freed and empowered we are to be able to remember the truth of who we are. And then that is what I believe is our divine purpose, that we're actually here to remember the purity and the potency of simply being who we are, knowing that that is perfection and that is divine.
So how did you get from this place of learning how to work with your own empathic nature and the sensitivity that you had and these feelings that you would experience that were sometimes your own and sometimes other people's? How did you get from there to starting a business around this?
So I always knew that I loved working with people. Every job that I ever had, was in service. It was some form of service. I worked as a weight loss counselor for a weight loss company. Just at the end of that was when I had my anxiety breakdown. I moved and I chose to work in a little shop selling dresses, and I just noticed how much I could perceive what people wanted and needed without them actually telling me. So I made lots of great sales and always had the perfect dress for the perfect customer, but I knew that there had to be more expansive ways to apply that. I knew nothing about emotional healing. I didn't, it's not very talked about. We don't talk about healing on the emotional level, strangely. So I ended up attracting true love on my own self-healing journey, and I got married, moved to New Zealand, and I started working for a gym, and I was their sales consultant, became a PT, and the conversation was all around food and eating, which is where I had lost my own 30 kilos and had overcome my own eating disorder. But, I just knew that the conversation wasn't broad enough. So I studied life coaching for 6 months, got a qualification. I got some mentoring while I started. I just freaking dove in. I just was so curious to actually have a dialogue around what are people feeling, what's happening in their inner world. It's this secret cordoned off area that a lot of people never expose. And I started off telling people that I could help them to lose weight. And so that was what I actually moved into, and I did for nearly 6 years. I ended up specializing in eating disorders, and through the dialogue of the behavior patterns that people saw with their food, I would actually guide them to look at the feelings that they were resisting experiencing as they turned to that shadow pattern of compulsion. And that was actually how I was able to support them to release that. But then I realized I'm not actually helping people overcome eating disorders. I'm actually helping people to emotionally heal so that that shadow pattern lifts. Addictions aren't something that you fix the addiction, you fix the underlying, lack of capacity to be with yourself or be with the feelings that are prompting that behavior.
How long have you been doing this coaching?
So 8 years now, I've been serving people. 8 years. And obviously my husband was very supportive and he really stood by me. And I think what's so powerful is that the more people confided in me, the more information that I had, the more clarity I had to be able to guide them. So it was just amazing that my clients are actually teaching me. I had this incredible curiosity, and they would actually show me what they knew needed to heal. They just didn't know how to do it. And it's like, yeah, I was able just to be able to hold that love for them so that they would be safe enough to try something new and explore a part of themselves that they hadn't before. And so when people started coming to me with alcohol dependency, I've never touched a drop in my life. So I was moving from an area where I had experience having an eating disorder to an area where I had no personal experience. And I said to those clients, you really want to work with me when I've never had a drop of alcohol in my life? And they said, we feel really good about you. And so that was what opened me up to actually be with them around that root cause of what was actually going on in those unconscious patterns within themselves.
You know that the name of this show is The Creative Imposter, and we talked a little bit before we started recording about what that could possibly mean. Did you always feel very confident when you had this idea, yes, I'm going to start coaching people? And I know that you started in an area with weight loss that felt comfortable to you because you had personal experience with it. And then you started to branch out into this other area where you did not have direct experience with the thing people were being challenged by. Did you always feel confident that you were going to be able to help them? Or did you ever have these moments of feeling like, who do I think I am to do this?
Yeah, I think I always thought, who am I? But for some reason, I felt so committed to loving them and so committed to the results that they wanted that I just trusted that my intention alone, let alone theirs, would actually bring forward some gold. And I think what is so powerful about intending is that is what happened every time. I never, ever know what I'm going into in a session. And I always just have this implicit trust that I don't believe I'm ever working alone, whether I think I'm working with my soul or my angels or my guides or just the heavens. I really think that we're not alone. And so I have always seen miracles come forward for my clients, but they always need to have that spiritual paradigm. People who don't believe never work with me and never get results with me. I don't work with them anymore because they can't open up and allow and trust in something higher than themselves. So that's a question I ask now. Nobody even comes to me anymore. It's probably been a few years since anyone's come to me with that doesn't have a strong spiritual paradigm, because you need that for my work. But I think the most scary thing for me was releasing my first book and really thinking, who the hell do you think you are to tell people how to emotionally heal based on your own experience? So I had secretly been doing my work for about 6 months, and the results from my clients got me so curious that I thought, if I don't share this with other people, I'm going to die with this song in my heart and it's just going to kill me. So it was kind of like do or die was how I felt.
How did you move from that place to say, no, this is something that is valuable? It's not easy to create a book, right? It takes work. How did you move through that?
There's actually a chapter in the book on this. In the first book, it's called Ego, the Shadow Compass. And so what I started teaching people is that we actually all have maybe 3 different aspects to focus on at this point. And one is our ego, one is our inner child, and one is our higher self. So I really would help people create results. And this is what I did for myself as well. By having a relationship with these aspects, I recognize that my ego is kind of like a really angry parent that loves me dearly, but is deeply frightened of me being injured or scratched, even a little bit. So it tells me all the things that I shouldn't do for fear that I could get hurt. So as I acknowledge that that's actually a loving presence, I kind of hear it and acknowledge it and go, yes, this could be rubbish. And yes, I could be a worthless fool. But I have this desire in my heart, and I have a strong feeling that this could actually be valuable for me alone to express and share with other people. So saying the shadow compass, what I mean is that if you've ever heard follow your heart or follow your heart's desires, I think it's very socially accepted to follow the desires that we have. But shadow compass, in so much as our ego, if it's telling me that my book is rubbish, then it's likely that that would mean writing the book would actually be a very powerful soul choice that would then bring me closer to my truth. And that was exactly what it did. By writing the book and exposing my own experiences, my own miscarriage, my own upbringing, rife with separation and a lot of arguments, by sharing that, it actually allowed me to deepen into my truth. So what I help my clients to do is actually acknowledge this ego voice and use it as a way. If it says, don't go that way, definitely go that way. So every time it would say, this book is rubbish, I said, it will be gold, and it's definitely going to be a good soul decision. So it was confirming. I loved it. And you got to sit in the discomfort. But now that I can use it for that, and I still do, my second book, Divine Purpose, it was like, who the hell do you think you are to tell people about being divine? Look how freaking divine you are. You know what I mean? And so I went, I am definitely the person to share this because I know all of my flaws and I know how my ego prevents me from acknowledging my own divinity to myself. I am the perfect messenger because I don't believe I'm divine, and I deeply want everyone to know that they are and that I am as well, that I want to know that for myself.
It's almost like taking this imposter voice, or as you said, this ego voice, and when you hear those messages that could be limiting or could give you the excuse to not move forward if you just caved to that voice, it's almost like looking for that voice as that confirmation. It's like totally reframing it as this bizarre cheerleader that is like helping you to push forward and to move into that scary place, and using the imposter voice to help you find your authenticity.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories for when I really started engaging with this was I started increasing my prices with my work, and I really wanted to gift my clients something very significant and special to honor the progress that they'd made and the healing that they'd done with our work together. And my ego was like, you're not buying them a gift. You're not spending your money. That's your money. And I went, I definitely need to get them a gift. And so I went to the shops, and my ego would be like, do not go to that shop. And I was like, what, that one? Perfect. And so I went into that shop, and my ego would be like, you see those gorgeous glistening blue earrings? Do not get them for your client. They're too gorgeous. She doesn't deserve them. Don't pay that for them. And I went, they are the perfect earrings. And I bought that specific pair, so it actually makes life really easy because of the stark clarity. So, I'd lived my life being completely controlled by this voice. Every time it told me not to do something, not to say, not to tell someone my name, I actually bowed down and I obeyed that voice. And what I noticed was that the more I obeyed, the more my territory shrunk. And I got to a place in my life where I stood on such a small segment that I realized that heeding and obeying that voice would only shrink me into nothingness. So then using that pain and being limited into that nothingness, it just helped me really burst out and go, you are always going to be a part of my life. I love you. I honor that you're only trying to protect me, but you only know the past based on pain. And I deeply believe that that pain has refined and cultivated me, and that it wants to help me step into my purpose and my power. So let's go. You tell me not what to do, and I'll go freaking do it over and over and over again.
So, okay, this is getting really technical, but sometimes we hear an intuitive voice that cautions us about something that we should heed and we should listen to. So how would you know the difference?
I don't think it's a technical question. I think this is a fundamental soul question that every human on the planet has to be able to distinguish. You have to be able to discern whether this is coming from ego or whether it's coming from your internal guidance, intuition, soul. And the way that I like to help people clarify is purely based on feeling. You can't have it based on the words. You can't have it based on the situation. Whenever my ego speaks to me, there's always an internal tension and there's always a slightly clenched feeling. Does that make sense when I say it, Andrea?
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever my intuitive voice guides me and says maybe don't go down that path or don't speak with that person, I always have a sense of peace. There's always a sense of calm with that guidance, even when it's don't or no or stay away from that. There's still this kind of sense of peace and calm.
Mm-hmm. So you're adding a direct awareness of how your body is responding to the message,
yes,
rather than just intellectualizing the message itself.
Exactly. And this is where we get so lost, because you can't think your freaking way through this. And this is why, the more emotional healing we do to kind of release the negative stigma and the negative emotional reactions, the more embodied we become and the more trusting of ourselves and the more capable we are of discerning which place these messages and promptings are coming from, which aligns us more easily to our path, our truth, what we're meant to be doing, synchronicities and openings.
This is all really wonderful. And I do just want to say that I'm about halfway through Divine Purpose right now. And I'm really resonating with the chakra work specifically because that's something that I teach and it's something that I study, and I'm really loving some of the different affirmations and tools that you're giving to go with each of these chakras. It's just really adding to my depth of knowledge and repertoire. What would you say is the best place for someone to start if they're thinking, yeah, this is me. I think that I am a highly sensitive, empathic person, and I'd like to learn more about how to work with this gift?
I think two places. One would be my YouTube channel. It's really lovely for people to see me and hear me and kind of feel me. And some people just binge out on my YouTube channel. So if you're liking this, check out some of those videos. There's some great ones on what it means to be an empath, how we can self-heal, how we can nurture our feelings, how we can develop a new relationship with ourselves and our ego. The other place would be my books. And what's really interesting is that people always know which book is right for them. People who are aware that their heart is in pain always choose the heart healing book, and it's always the best place for them. People who are more, say, spiritually developed and aware of the chakras kind of want to bypass that and really skip on to the divine purpose book. It's kind of interesting because my next book is actually going to be a precursor to heart healing. It's all going to be around empath essentials. I'm so excited about writing it. And it will end up being empath essentials, heart healing, and then divine purpose. And it's going to become a bit of a trilogy. Who knew that was going to happen?
And then you and I met, this is our official first meeting, but we've communicated a little bit back and forth via the internet and Facebook, and we've actually met by being part of the same mastermind circle. And so I'm just curious, what is challenging you most in your business and in your work right now?
What's challenging me the most is I'm getting inundated with admin. Now that people really know what I can do and how I do it, I get a lot of requests, and I love helping people. So I find it really, really hard. I have a 24-hour turnaround policy for myself with emails. If someone contacts me, I just really want to honor what it's taken for them to go out of their way and contact me and get back. But it just means that I'm getting snowed in every day. So just today, I have interviewed a VA who isn't going to be helping me with my email, but is going to be helping with some data entry and my behind the scenes, really helping me with my YouTube channel and helping me to update my website so that I can make people accessing a heart healing session or buying the books really, really easy and smooth. So I think I didn't know that people would resonate so much with my work. I really released my first book to honor my own journey, and I thought if it just sunk, then that would be fine. But now that I've gotten here, I'm really excited about my next book because I really want to talk about how the highly sensitive are highly attuned to truth. We can tell if someone's lying to us. We're very, very perceptive about what's true and what's not. And if we allow ourselves to develop that, we can actually heal ourselves faster and easier, and then create a presence where other people can be witnessed and held and loved in deep compassion. And that is a lot of what I bring to my sessions now, because obviously people reading my books know how to do this. They know how to self-heal. But having that loving, compassionate witness makes all the difference in the power and the depth of it. So my dream is to be able to equip people with the skills to bring the same loving, healing presence so that more of us can feel safe to come home to who we truly are.
My last question for you is, if someone is listening to this right now and they're thinking that they're ready or almost ready to take the next steps on a healing path and exploring this deeper connection with themselves and perhaps exploring how to work with these unique gifts or how to navigate the ego self and get closer to their authenticity, but they're feeling a bit trepidatious about it, a bit like, I'm not sure if I really am ready to dig underneath the surface a little bit. What would be your words of wisdom or your advice or guidance for them?
I think what's really lovely is that I see pain as a gift. And if that fourth boyfriend didn't break up with me and didn't create a situation where I felt that enormity of pain, I would have never have been awakened and activated to actually understand what was happening in my own inner world. People always come to me in a degree of pain, and that's not something I'm afraid of. I see it as a blessing, because That's the only reason why we would actually give attention to this. Nobody likes looking at this stuff. That's why I really like vulnerably sharing my own stories and the stories of people I work with so people don't feel alone. I think what's really lovely is when we are in that position where we're afraid to look, but we're afraid to stay in the same place, the heavens often kind of tip the scales. We think that life is getting worse for us, but actually we're just being encouraged to turn within. It's incredible what the heavens will do for us to, I guess, incentivize our loving return within. The more people spend a little bit of time there, it gets easier and easier. So whenever I receive a new client, I always give them the greatest amount of attention and dedication in the first month. So I think it's really nice for people to hear that learning these skills for the first time does take dedication. But if you're experiencing pain, you're freaking going to do it. I freaking did. And what I want to do is make it faster and easier and smoother and more supported, because it's actually a really gorgeous adventure, and realizing how profoundly divine each of us is and how we are so inherently perfect is such a comforting, reassuring idea when we've all thought that we're broken, that we're no hopers, that there's something fundamentally wrong with us. It's an incredibly comforting idea.
That is so perfect. Lysa, is there anything else that you feel like you want to share or that you want to add?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that we are all capable of discerning truth as soon as we intend, as soon as we're ready, as soon as we allow ourselves to reevaluate some of the perceptions that we've had about who we are. The person that emerges is actually so easy to love and so easy to be with that that's what I really want for people. I used to hate myself. I used to fear myself and judge myself so harshly, but I just didn't really know who I was, and I didn't know how special and unique I was. So I think it's really nice for people to hear that we're all so deeply lovable and we're all so deeply powerful, and however people access that reality is just something that I really want for the whole world, Andrea. I want us to be able to know that we're all infinitely precious and that there is some real treasure within every one of us, even though it's incredibly unique.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time and working through technical difficulties.
We're perseverant, we're flexible, we're fluid. It's been beautiful. Thank you so much for the gorgeous questions and for a chance to speak with your audience, to really support them to listen to their own souls and understand that we all have this ridiculous voice, and to use it to really confirm what they can and should do to step closer to their truth.
Lysa Black, heart healer, empath, and woman with the most incredible voice and accent. Don't you just want to listen to her for hours and hours and hours? You can, of course, connect with Lysa on her website and also check out her 2 books. I will link up to all things Lysa Black in the show notes at thecreativeimposter.com/028. And I wanted to let you know about something new that I'm offering. Have you ever thought of starting your own podcast? There is something so empowering about having your very own platform where you get to really dig deep and discover what's most important to you, meet new, inspiring, awesome people, and express your gifts and your point of view with a diverse audience all across the world. A platform in which you have complete creative control. Right now, I am offering a brand new service called Podcast Envy. And if you want to learn how to start your own, hop on over to the show notes or go to podcastenvy.com and book a complimentary call with me so that we can chat about your idea, find out what your biggest challenges or obstacles are, and discover how to get your show launched. There are options to work with me one-on-one, and also I'm going to be starting a small group in January. So don't wait. Book your call with me and let's figure it out together. Oh, and remember in the beginning of the episode, I told you that there was something big that I was going to do in response to both this current election cycle and listening to Gloria Steinem's My Life on the Road audiobook from audible.com. And that is the Women's March in January in DC. Well, more specifically, that is creating an audio documentary, podcast style, about the Women's March in DC, or even more specifically, about my experience and the experience of a whole group of women being organized by the aforementioned fabulous Nikki Neagle. Nikki is organizing, along with a couple of my other friends, a whole group to go from Chicago to DC for this experience. And again, I would never consider myself to be a political activist, but there's something that's calling me to this experience. And it's a little bit scary, honestly. And I want to document it. I want to find out who's going, why we're going, and where we and our experience fits into everything that's happening in our country right now. So why am I telling you this? One, I'm telling you this so that I don't back out and I have some accountability. And two, I need your help. The trip obviously has a cost involved with it. And so the time has come for me to finally set up a Patreon page. I know this is the worst time of year to be asking for money. The worst. But you know what? Timing is what it is. And so let me tell you about Patreon. It is sort of like a crowdfunding platform, and it is a way for creators, makers, artists, content providers to create a simple gateway for people who enjoy consuming their content, for their listeners, their fans, their followers, to contribute to the creative work that they're doing. It is really hard sometimes to make money in art, which some of you know for sure. It is really hard to figure out how to make money from podcasting, but we do it because we love it so much and we have a passion for it and we see that it's important and it fills a need. And so this is a really simple way where you can become a patron of The Creative Imposter by simply heading on over to the Patreon page, which of course, again, I'm linking in the show notes at thecreativeimposter.com/028 to support the show. And in this case, particularly, I have a goal in mind in order to be able to fund the audio documentary about the Women's March in DC in January. Your monthly contribution can be as little as $1 a month. There are, of course, perks and incentives that I am offering in exchange for your support. And most of all, you as a funder during this period will specifically become a contributing producer to the audio documentary that I'm creating. So if you'd like to see this happen, if the march is something that you are interested in, but you're not really able to go for any reason and you want to participate, here is a way to do it. Also, in general, whether you care about the march or politics at all, if you love listening to The Creative Imposter, this is a great way to help motivate me to get my episodes out more consistently and not leave such a long gap. Okay, enough about that. I want to thank you so much for listening to this slightly longer than usual episode. I want to invite you to visit me at thecreativeimposter.com, learn more about Lysa, get her book, and see if maybe some heart healing is what you need right now this holiday season. For sure, if you have ever thought about starting a podcast, or you really want to and you're just not sure how, book a free call with me. If you need some help with your social media strategy, check out Betsy Bash. And at the very least, I know you need something to listen to in your train, plane, or automobile this holiday travel season. So why not get your free trial of audible.com started and pick up your first 2 audiobooks. This episode was mixed by Edwin Ruiz of Mondo Machine and my engineering partner for Podcast Envy. Our theme music is by Jovia Armstrong. I thank you for listening, and I hope you have a week filled with so much magic.